Hi everyone. Apologies for the delay. It was all me and my internet connection, but we're all settled now and we're here joining you live. Well, I'm here from Melbourne and Kelly's joining us from Perth. So we're literally across the continent, across the country. So apologies again for the delay. But thank you, Kelly, for joining us today to talk about unhealthy food marketing to children and to help us launch our Fame and Shame for 2020.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's so nice to be with you.
Now, Kelly, you work at Cancer Council WA. What do you do there?
I am the obesity prevention manager here. We have a really large team at Cancer Council WA that works across all different types of risk factors. And in our obesity prevention team, we do lots of things. So we run the Live Lighter campaign. We do lots of policy work, trying to strengthen policy and create healthier environments for people to be healthy. And we also do some targeted schools programs. So we have a Crunch and Sit program here that some people may have heard of too. So very busy.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Again, thank you very much for joining us. Apologies, viewers, for my slight distractedness. I've had to move rooms in my house because here in Melbourne, we're still working from home. But I'll be settled in a minute, I'm sure. So, Kelly, how long have you been at Cancer Council WA?
Well, I've been here on and off for about 10 years. And before I started working in this job, I was working in tobacco control. So it's really interesting to see now I'm working in this space, all of the tactics that we used to see that the tobacco industry used to use to market to kids and tell government that they're doing the right thing are really being rolled out by the junk food industry too. So I think we're in a really good position that we know what to expect by the industry with how they market to kids and how they market in general.
Yeah, absolutely. So getting straight into it, unhealthy marketing to children. What sort of tactics, what's wrong with unhealthy marketing? What do these companies do? How are they targeting children?
Well, I think maybe this would be a good start to show. I've put some slides together just to show some examples. So maybe we'll run through some examples and then we can have a chat about what the real concerns are about these, apart from the concerns we have as parents. What does it actually mean? So I'll just share my screen. Just bear with me. Make sure I'm sharing the right one.
Yeah, excellent.
Okay, so I don't think any of these slides. Whoop.
I'm glad it's not just me with technical difficulties.
Here we go. I'm the worst person to be in charge of anything technical. So I don't think any of us will be surprised at some of these images I'm about to see. I should have said before, actually, Alice, in my introduction, I have three boys. So I have a 13-year-old, an 11-year-old and a 7-year-old, and they're all sports mad. And they also love, they love their screen time and looking at YouTube clips and they, the sorts of things that they talk about really worry me, and they're really evident in these photos as well. So you'll see some images here, just some typical things that kids will see as they're scrolling through their Instagram or looking at TikTok. You can, up there with Pepsi, you can create your own dance with Pepsi. You can share a Coke with Santa. It's an interactive game where Santa's surfing and personalising your name on a Coke with Santa. You can play a game with Colonel Sanders. You can get little mini games from Mcdonald's. There's lots of things that suck some of our younger kids into clicking through on these and learning about their products.
Yeah.
The other thing that's worrying is the use of role models in endorsing products. And this is an example here that's recently been launched by McDonald's. This is Travis Scott. Travis Scott is I'm telling you probably things that you know, because if your kids like me, they love Travis Scott. He is an American rapper. He has millions and millions of followers on social media, very influential in terms of young people. So McDonald's have used him for their latest campaign. So not only can you get a Travis Scott meal, but there's lots of behind the scenes clips of Travis Scott serving people in the drive-through. You can get a little Travis Scott figurine with your meal in the US. And so these are the things that despite this being a US-based campaign, it really doesn't matter with how kids have access to social media.
Yeah, absolutely. My 10-year-old's a big YouTuber. Well, he watches YouTube. He loves all the YouTubers. And I'm constantly surprised by the amount of ads that he's seen.
Yeah. And there's also still this really disappointing association with some fast food and sport. So I've used the West Australian teams because these are the ones that we see all the time that frustrate me, but it's no different in your state, I'm sure. So this year, the Fremantle Dockers gave out free, that you got a Big Mac every Monday if they won on the weekend. So social media feeds are just saturated with ads for free Big Macs. Luckily, I can say this because I am a Dockers supporter. They don't win that often, so there weren't many burgers being given out, but still the advertising that comes with that is really, heavily saturated. And then our other team, the West Coast Eagles, their major sponsor is Hungry Jack's, which is a competitor of McDonald's, obviously. But if you go to a game, which, WA people were able to do this season, there's Whoppers exploding, images of Whoppers exploding on the screen every time someone kicks a goal. There's player endorsements. There's players munching into a burger, which is obviously food they'd never eat. But kids don't know that. All they see is their favourite team linked up with a brand. And then last cricket season, there was a lot of advertising for McDonald's, particularly transit advertising for cricket too. So really disappointing that some of these teams are still choosing to promote these unhealthy products that are just a terrible fit for their game. The other place we see a lot of advertising is on public transport. So these are just some images, some local images, and also that one down the bottom left is in Melbourne. All of this space in WA is owned by the WA government. They're still selling this space to junk food companies despite the fact that these are the products that are making our kids sick. So really in spaces where people just can't hide, kids can't escape from this type of advertising when it's just in their daily lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a major train station in Melbourne where McDonald's, you can actually get your McDonald's from inside the train station. So you're already in there.
Yeah.
It crosses through the barrier from either side.
Yeah.
But there's no, that space is really dominated by junk food and unhealthy foods.
Yeah, and it also obviously influences that unplanned purchasing and all of those other things that we know advertisements are very successful in doing. These are my favourites. The bus down the bottom left, I quite often have to follow this bus after I drop my kids off at school, and it really frustrates me that these are the buses in Western Australia, in Perth, that are on popular school routes, so owned by the government. And again, just this type of advertising, you cannot escape it. Also, advertising around schools. So the one at the top left is an ad directly across the road from one of WA's largest high schools. The ad for Pepsi, you can see, is right in the middle of Perth's new, our pride and joy, Yagan Square, which is a new cultural centre. And this was just taken last night. The fact that one of, Perth's brand new, beautiful cultural spaces is just laden with this type of advertising. And of course, it's not just advertising to kids that we've seen that is, constant, but it's also just really surprising and shocking how quickly the industry can pivot to what else is going on. So we've seen some really underhanded ads that are, taking advantage of people being home during isolation. They're thanking healthcare workers. They're really using this to position themselves as good corporate citizens and use COVID to boost their sales of unhealthy products. Appealing to humour as well, while making their brands relatable to the current situation. So really, these are not unlike any of the ads that you're going to be acknowledging today when you open your voting, but just I think setting the scenes of just, it's so hard for kids and families to escape this advertising when it's just this prolific.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I'll just stop sharing my screen now.
Thanks, Kelly. I think, all of that really does show how there's really no way for us as parents to protect our children completely from this type of advertising. And it really does show that we need action from our governments, right? Because the only way, there was that campaign that Jamie Oliver ran relatively successfully in the UK with getting people to take photos covering their eyes, because that was the only way that you could avoid your children from seeing junk food ads in all of their settings, home and outside. Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're right. The government really needs to set higher standards for the industry, given the health impact of community. We hear a lot about the obesity epidemic. We know rates of obesity are rising, and that the junk food industry is really squarely to blame for this. But they will have people believe that it's up to parents and it's up to individual choice. So it's our job to be really fighting hard on behalf of communities to make these companies responsible as they should be. Absolutely. And I think that's the bit that really resonates for me, that companies are selling these products. They know that they're unhealthy, and they should be made to be responsible for the impact of the product they're selling. And for parents, that first step is to stop them from advertising to children, to advertising products to children. Yeah. So I think it's really, we hope it's quite empowering for parents to hear that there are people like Cancer Council, Obesity Policy Coalition, lots of NGOs fighting really hard on this issue. And one of the big issues we're trying to address at the moment, which is a really easy thing for state governments to do, is just stop selling this advertising space to junk food advertisers. So that's one thing that can be done. Obviously, there are lots of things that can be done, but at a minimum, there's no reason why state governments can't start banning advertising on their own property, particularly when they're also wrestling with such huge cost to their hospitals because of illness related to consuming these products. And I think that's really key. It's space that's owned by the taxpayers, so to speak, by all of us, and where the government administers that space on our behalf. And a lot of the community are behind the government setting a higher standard there and not selling that space to unhealthy food marketers.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's very difficult because the industry are very powerful with the way that they lobby government. So they've been creating a bit of a fear campaign with government, saying, if you do this, you're going to lose a lot of money. You make money from selling this space. People are going to lose their jobs. You've got no evidence. It should be up to parents to control. And yet we know that's rubbish. And so we're working really hard to build the evidence to counter all those industry arguments so that the government has no excuse. And so what would really help is, parents writing to their local MPs and saying that they want the government more accountable. They want the government to set higher standards to protect their kids. Writing to your local government. Local governments also own a lot of space that are sold to advertising companies, to companies to sell products on their property too. So there are, the government responds really, they do respond to community concerns. So the more we can, as a movement, start letting the government know that we expect more from them, the more we're going to get traction.
Absolutely. And I can let the parents that are watching us today, I don't want to, reveal anything, but the current Parents' Voice is currently looking at our plans for next year. And we've heard from a number of parents that this is an issue where they want us to be advocating on behalf of parents, but also from our colleagues in other public health organisations, that these campaigns are ramping up, and we're doing what we can to collectively leverage the power that we have, the power that we get from being a network of parents, and joining our public health colleagues to try and get change in this space across Australia. So kind of keep an eye on your inboxes over the next couple of months. And we'll also be looking at what you can do individually, whether it's potentially some form letters or something like that, so you can reach out to your MP, like Kelly said. So let us know what you need, and what you need to kind of take some of that action yourself, or whether you're happy to just kind of get behind a broader push. So we've heard the junk food marketing. So what's the evidence there around the marketing itself changing consumption? Like, what's the problem with the marketing,
Well, the marketing does a number of things. So one, it makes kids aware of products that are out there that they may not have known about. So new products, it associates these products with things that they like. So partnering with sports or people like Travis Scott just says, oh, well, it's if my favourite team or my favourite rapper likes that, maybe I will too. So they become really loyal to that brand, and that loyalty sticks. So I'm sure people out there can relate to their kids, when talking about, my kids talk a lot about Domino's, and I keep saying, how do you even know about Domino's? But it's just completely, every second ad on their Instagram page is about Domino's. So if I ever talk about pizza, that's what they talk about. It also, we know from research that it creates norms. Like it makes kids think that eating these products is normal, and that's what that's been a real success of some of the regulations around smoking and tobacco, is that when we started seeing restrictions on where people could and couldn't smoke, kids were seeing less adults smoking, and it just became this thing that wasn't seen. It wasn't normal. It wasn't an aspirational thing anymore. And I think a lot of what we're doing now by having no regulation is just saying, well, this product's fine. This is part of life, and it's not. It shouldn't be the case. So we need to be sending a strong signal that these are not products that should just have free rein to be marketed, given the health impacts of their consumption. But we also know, and the World Cancer Fund put out a report recently too, where they quantified the health impacts of this type of marketing, and it does lead to increased kilojoule consumption, a total kilojoule consumption among kids who are exposed. So the higher exposure, was linked to a higher consumption. So we know that it does have an impact on what people choose to eat, whether we want to or not. It does, and particularly teenagers who they're starting to have a part-time job, or they've got pocket money, they've got their own money. They make very impulsive decisions. They haven't developed that part of their brain that makes is able to make decisions without the influence of this type of advertising. So we know there's undisputable evidence around the role of this advertising, and I guess the biggest evidence is the fact that the companies do it. They wouldn't be spending all this money on advertising if it didn't work. So
yes, I think that's the one I always come back to, that these companies aren't in the business of throwing their money away. It's very highly researched, targeted spending, so we know it has impact.
Yeah.
All of the research shows us, but also just the simple fact that they're putting their dollars there, we know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've talked a bit about the unhealthy marketing. The examples were great, and I think it shows, like I was saying, how kids are targeted in every kind of realm of their life. So across from public transport through to online and digital ad space, but also just the use of influencers. So what role does the environment have in helping communities be healthy? How does an environment help people be healthy?
Well, I think what's really important is, as I said before, sending a strong message about, what products are appropriate to be marketed. So I think, sorry, just having technical problems in here. So we know that healthy options policies, for example, are really important. So we need, and we're seeing a lot of improvements in this space, particularly in Western Australia, where there are healthy options available. You know, people want healthy options, but if you're in an event or a junior sporting club or a rec centre or wherever you are, and you need to buy food, you've only got what's in front of you. So we know that offering more healthy food choices helps. There are lots of things in the environment that influence our food choices, and advertising is a really big one. So as price, we see, I think we saw some of those examples with the Hungry Jack's drinks. They're only $2, and I think they've gone down this year. That photo was from earlier this year. My son bought one the other day for $1. A big frozen Coke for $1. So, you know, they suck kids into buying that, and while they're there, then they buy other things. So this advertising really, you know, we really do need to create healthier environments to protect our kids so that people are more equipped to make healthier choices and make those choices easier as well.
Well, I definitely think I was at something recently where someone was talking about that same issue, that the $1 frozen drinks. And if you go into any of those establishments, particularly somewhere like 7-Eleven, the water is often more expensive. So yes, we should be drinking water from the tap, but if you're caught out and you're out without a water bottle with you, you go in, it's actually cheaper to buy a Slurpee than it is to buy a water drink. And so really those healthy options, while they're there, all of our environments are driving us to making that unhealthy one, the unhealthy choice.
Yeah, absolutely. And we know, you know, we know our communities want to be healthy. We know they're trying hard, but the environment lets them down quite often. So we need to do a lot better. Yeah, and there are so many ways. I think we've just spoken about one way, but really there is very little regulation about how junk food and unhealthy food can be marketed to kids, and it's limited to some free-to-air restrictions in children's programming, but all of the other things that happen in this country happen because of voluntary industry codes that are not mandated. They're not regulated. It's like the fox being in charge of the hen house. So, you know, if you want to make a complaint, you're making a complaint to the industry. There's no incentive for people to comply. There's no disincentive. There's no fine, you know. So it's completely absurd and ineffective. And we know that any of those industry codes have had no difference on protecting kids.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had numerous instances where in the past we might have put a complaint in and the ad has stopped running by the time that the complaint is being heard anyway. So it has no real impact on whether they're showing those ads or not.
Yeah,
I think that Charlie Pickering once said it really great. It was a piece maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and he said it wasn't just putting the fox in charge of the hen house. It was putting the fox in charge of the hen house after the fox had told you that they didn't really think that hen safety was their responsibility. So we'd let them design it and do all of the piece, but they were kind of saying it's not really our job to do that. So I think it's definitely one of the things that Parents' Voice works on is that kind of the failure of our self-regulatory, our voluntary codes that we have, and that they don't protect children.
Yeah. Absolutely, and that's why we're calling on the government to really step up and develop mandatory, regulations that are actually evidence-based and do have a chance of being successful.
Absolutely. And so, what impact do you think the coronavirus pandemic has had on this year's advertising to children?
I think, we saw some examples before how the industry has really moved very, very quickly in its creative that it's delivering. So it's really taken advantage of people in their vulnerable moments, particularly early in the pandemic. So too tired to cook, really tapping into some of those stresses that people were already feeling. So I think the advertising industry has probably done quite well. We know that, that there's a report that Cancer Council WA and Cancer Council Victoria commissioned that surveyed people nationally about their eating habits and their takeaway purchasing. And we have seen an increase in people saying that they're ordering out more, they're buying more takeaway, particularly in Victoria. In Western Australia, we've been so fortunate that our restrictions were pretty short term compared to what people in Victoria have experienced in particular. So, the impacts were more short term in WA, but there certainly have been impacts for people in Victoria, and no doubt influenced by this really predatory marketing by the industry. So it's been a very, very tough year in many regards.
Yeah, absolutely. And, thank you for your thoughts about us here in Victoria. We just had our first weekend of real freedom while within 25 kilometres of our primary residence. But that was far enough for most of us to be able to get out to a park and see some family and friends, and hopefully enjoy some home-cooked food and less unhealthy foods. So, yeah, we've got Fame and Shame is this year, and the voting opens today and will go for the next couple of weeks. And it features a lot of the things that you've talked about. So it's got ads from all different spectrums and different, so which we've categorised in different sections. But it also features a couple of categories that show some good advertising. And I think that there was a kind of a bit of a gap in the middle of the year, but some of the fruit and vegetable growers, and there were some interesting examples of companies trying to encourage people to be physically active while in ISO, particularly earlier in that year in the first bit of isolation, which I think it was tough for everyone to stay motivated. And I could understand why people had ordered out a little bit more, and influenced by, like you said, the predatory marketing. And I think Vic Health did a really interesting report earlier this year that a couple of months ago that showed the amount of junk food and unhealthy foods that's being marketed on the delivery apps, and how that increases in Victoria. It was quite evident during our second lockdown. That was a kind of slightly clumsy segue, but I'm going to move us into announcing the nominees, the shortlist for Fame and Shame, unless you have anything else you'd like to add before we move into them, Kelly.
No, I'm just looking forward to seeing who we're voting for.
Excellent. That's the attitude. Woo, excited. Keep in mind, everyone. So we know from previous experience that the companies keep a bit of an eye on this. And although when I looked back, this is the 16th Fame and Shame Awards, it is really a kind of pivotal point in our campaigning against our campaigning for governments to set a higher standard on this sort of marketing and to protect children. So without too much further ado, I am going to share. I'm going to share it. So for those of you who might have scrolled ahead, this is now live on our website, Fame and Shame. And it features our usual kind of categories. So we've got Pester Power starting off here. I'm not going to play them for you, but we've got KFC for their bucket ad, which shows a group of children skipping school to go and buy fried chicken from KFC. Pester Power here is the McDonald's Australia ad, which actually was the result. So there was a complaint made by the Obesity Policy Coalition in the Ad Standards Board on this one earlier in the year. The complaint was upheld, which means the board said that it did target children, and McDonald's said, well, we're not going to run it on TV. But I know that a couple of people have seen it on YouTube, or the shorter versions. But it's quite, it's a very unusual thing for the Ad Standards Board to agree when complaints are made. So you'll see why when you watch that video. And of course, a kind of standard McDonald's Happy Meal ad here with trolls, which has, well, in Victoria, it's only just come out in our 1 drive-in, 2 drive-ins this weekend. The second category here, we've got Digital Ninja. And this features a couple of different things. The first time, I don't know how many parents, I don't know about you, Kelly, TikTok. TikTok is huge. My kids are just slightly under the kind of ideal TikTok age, but my older one is getting there now. Milo cereal did a TikTok challenge. I think it's called Milo Freestyle. This one here, Kit Kat Game Ready. Unless your children are gamers, you're probably not going to fully recognize the setting, but Twitch is a social media that's particularly used by people to stream their gaming online, used by, a whole range of people, but teenagers in particular. And this is an ad that runs on Twitch telling people to stop gaming to eat chocolate. So it's not stop gaming and go for a walk or have a glass of water, take a break. It's take a break and eat a Kit Kat. We've got this one here, which is a Snapchat filter. Apparently, so Coca-Cola ran a campaign where you could ask Alexa to share a Coke with you. So it was your Amazon Alexa, and you would get a free personalized bottle as part of that campaign. And I think, so there was actually quite a huge list of ads that were nominated in this category. And what our committee has tried to do is kind of show a cross-section of products, but also a cross-section of kind of platforms to show how ubiquitous it is, that it's everywhere. It's literally everywhere that our kids are online. Foul sport. Now, Kelly, this kind of featured a little bit in yours, the use of sport to campaign on junk food, on unhealthy food to children, the connection there. It features Cadbury. So the nominees are Cadbury for their sponsorship of a significant number of women's sporting leagues, which was disappointing. I'm a big, strong supporter of women's sport, and I go along to all of the AFLW matches of my team here in Melbourne. It was disappointing to see them associate those women's leagues with Cadbury. McDonald's Australia for their sponsorship of local referees, which they all feature in this little ad. Kind of perennial nominee here in Nutrigrain for a BMX Unstoppable campaign. And then I do believe there's not to give the game away, but Kelly might have sent in a nomination here through Mantle Dockers, and they're giving the Big Macs away when they win the game. But that's a little compilation of a whole assortment of different things that have featured because of McDonald's Australia being a major sponsor of the AFL this year. With that top right bit there showing the Premiership Cup and the goalpost wraps that featured every goal through the game. Feel free to chime in, Kelly.
I haven't seen some of these, so fascinating.
Yes, one of the things I should have said is we do know these ads work because we spend a couple of weeks reviewing them all, compiling them, sending them to committee. It goes backwards and forwards before it gets here for the parents to vote on the ones that we've determined to be the worst. But I spend 2 weeks being just constantly hungry. I know what the ads are doing to me. I know but they still work. I still feel so hungry. So Smoke and Mirrors category is an ad. They're ads that make the products appear healthier. So they make unhealthy products appear healthy. We've got Milo cereal again, Kellogg's LCM bars, encouraging you to stick them in the lunchbox. And this one, which is let's say a new product, Microwavable Bacon. And actually, so sliced meats have made it into this category for the last couple of years. But this is the first one that requires any sort of heating. It's very easy, particularly for tweens and teens, to stick things in the microwave. And it shows a whole lot of kids going, it's unbelievable. The last one mispronounces it very adorably, and my children giggle every time they see it on TV. They're going to remember that ad. So bother boards is that category that really highlights the issue that we were talking about earlier, which is our government's selling off spaces for unhealthy food and drink. So apart from this one here, which is the personalised, and I'll show, hopefully this will, demonstrate to everyone. If you click on it, it becomes bigger so you can see more of the detail. We've got here some KFC ones with the on the side of buses. These ones came from Queensland, I think. This one is from WA, $2 Bursie, so it must have been earlier in the year, as you said, Kelly. And this one, I think, is from New South Wales. And I feel like don't link this bus in the era of a coronavirus. It has so many different meanings there, but it shows how impactful and how, you know, how it's across Australia that these ads are appearing on our buses. And we might have to put that bus wrap one that you had in, Kelly, we might stick that one in here with the Bursies. Now we've got a brand new category this year, and it was to highlight all of the things that we were seeing out there, but also hearing and around the unhealthy food marketing and unhealthy drink marketing targeted at children during the pandemic. We've called it ADdemic, which for people living in Melbourne, we've struggled with the creative side of our brains under lockdown. And that was quite a bit of work to come up with that name. So we're quite proud of it. Unfortunately, it was unfortunate that there was necessary for us to do this, though, and that we've managed to find this many examples that we believe target children and take advantage of the COVID-19 pandemic to target children. So we have this one here, which featured in your slides, Kelly, the stay home, stay connected with M&Ms. This one here, I don't know how many people purchased puzzles. I purchased a few. And Heinz ketchup, tomato ketchup, which, although ketchup is the American phrase, they sell this in Australia, and this ketchup puzzle went out to quite a number of Australians, it's just solid red. So, and this one here, again, I think this one in your presentation, Kelly. I think this.
Yeah, I stole it from Ainsley Satori.
Yeah, exactly. These both came from the Live Lighter blog. So we can share that with anyone. If anyone's interested, we can stick it in the comments. So it's a great blog by Ainsley over at Cancer Council WA around the coronavirus pandemic and the ads that have been, the companies that have taken advantage of it to market unhealthy products. And then that's the final bad category. Then we get good ones. Woo. We're on the home stretch now. Parents' Choice Foods. We've got a great one, Good Mood Food by Horticultural Innovation Australia, which is just a general eat fruits and veggies. It's great. This one here, Peel Good, Feel Good, which is the from Australian Bananas. And this, you can see how authentic this photo is. Someone sent it in. You've got the full kind of footpath and random person in the background. And then some great ones. These both came from a company called Perfection Fresh, which grow the cukes, you know, the baby cucumbers you get in the supermarket, and they also grow Australia's broccolini. And these are two great ads. The cukes one was sent in by a Parents' Voice supporter who was watching Junior MasterChef and saw that ad featuring quite a few times. I've got to be careful not to give away my favourites in these categories. I don't want to, you know, bias the voting. And then this is the very final category and the final fame category as well, Parents' Choice Physical Activity. And we've got first an ad by Headspace and the Australasian College for Exercise Physicians. I'm pretty sure I got that close to right. But they did a great series of ads, and this is a bit of a compilation one with a whole lot of different Australian kind of personalities, some sporting, some not, to talk about staying active, not just your body but your mind during the coronavirus pandemic and any periods of staying safe at home. This great one comes from South Australia. It's about getting out into nature with your kids. I won't ruin it for you. It's very cute. And this one here comes from Victoria, which is their This Girl Can campaign, which has this video, which is what people will be voting on, but it also has a kind of subsequent underlying program of funding a whole lot of different organisations across Victoria to be offering things to women and girls, so kind of try sessions and things. And then can finish voting. Now, don't do what I did just then and just click through. Everyone needs to vote on each of the sections. Don't skip through. That's what I'm asking everyone to do. I feel like I should have had little envelopes and read them. So what do you think, Kelly? There's quite a cross-section of different ads there.
No, there's so many good ones, particularly in the positive category. I love the, I shouldn't say. I was going to say which one. I won't say. But yeah, it's hard, but I'm excited. I'm going to go and vote now.
Yes, everyone should vote now. Evie's monitoring our Facebook comments. I'll just double check. It's one of the things about the difficulty of doing all of this from Victoria is that the Parents' Voice team has worked remotely since March. And so even when we're doing these kind of this kind of Facebook Live chats, we're in different locations, but I'm just checking there's no questions that need to be answered before we finish up. Other than that, we'll be sticking the voting link straight into the Facebook comments, so anyone who's watching along can click over. And then for everyone else, the voting will go out via email this afternoon. We'll be sending out the link, or you can head just straight to our website, and it's fairly self-explanatory to click through to find the voting panel. But thank you so much for joining us today, Kelly.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and congratulations for all the work you've put in, because these awards are so important and they raise awareness about, just the really predatory tactics that are out there. So it's a really great support to what we're doing that's not as public. So it's really great that you're engaging everyone and reassuring people that they're not alone as well when they see these ads and they're horrified. So well done to you and your team.
Oh, no, thank you for joining us, Kelly. I can tell you that was actually a few people who saw the webinar that you were part of a couple of months ago and impressed on us that we should invite you to come and have a chat with us. So we got fans over here in Melbourne.
Oh, very nice to hear.
Thank you to everyone who's been watching along on Facebook. I've been reliably informed that there's no questions. But if anyone does have anything that they wanted to clarify, they wanted thoughts, questions answered, feel free to email us at hello@parentsvoice.org.au. Otherwise, head across to our Facebook page, our website rather, parentsvoice.org.au, and follow the links through to vote on Fame and Shame. That's what Kelly will be doing now. I probably shouldn't, just to maintain some impartiality here in the system, but I encourage everyone who's watching to join in. Thank you, everyone, and goodbye.